Hello everyone, this is Sarfraz from Aristotle Prep, and we are looking at passage 19 from the OG 13 RC chapter. This has questions 93 to 98. So as always, we will first read the entire passage, understand it in detail, predict the purpose of the passage, and then look at the questions. It's a long passage, so we will go paragraph by paragraph. The first sentence is always the most important in this case. It says, the majority of successful senior managers do not closely follow the classical rational model of first clarifying goals, assessing the problem, formulating options, estimating likelihoods of success, making a decision, and only then taking action to implement the decision. What I basically gathered from this sentence is majority of successful senior managers do not follow the classical rational model of decision making. The steps within that are written over there. If there's any question, I will go back and read it again. Rather, in their day-to-day or day-by-day tactical maneuvers, these senior executives rely on what is vaguely termed intuition to manage a network of interrelated problems that require them to deal with ambiguity, inconsistency, novelty, and surprise, and to integrate action into the process of thinking. All the first paragraph tells me is a majority of successful senior managers, instead of using the rational classical model of decision making, use intuition. That's it. The second paragraph says, generations of writers on management have recognized that some practicing managers rely heavily on intuition. In general, however, such writers display a poor grasp of what intuition is. Some see it as the opposite of rationality, others view it as an excuse for capriciousness. Second paragraph talks about management writers and how they have accepted the role of intuition in decision making, but then it also finds faults with the way most of these writers define intuition, which also tells me that the rest of the passage will probably discuss what exactly is this managerial intuition. I think that's something that came to my mind. That's something that the author would try to do. Let's see if that actually is true as we read ahead. So the third paragraph says, Eisenberg's recent research on the cognitive processes of senior managers reveals that managers' intuition is neither of these. So neither of those two things that typical writers believe. Rather, senior managers use intuition in at least 5 distinct ways. Now we have the 5 ways coming up. I can see first, second, third, fourth, all of them over there. So while I will read it, I won't really try to understand any of those. First, they intuitively sense when a problem exists. Second, managers rely on intuition to perform well-learned behavior patterns rapidly. This intuition is not arbitrary or irrational, but is based on years of painstaking practice and hands-on experience that build skills. The third function of intuition is to synthesize isolated bits of data and practice into an integrated picture, often in an aha experience. Fourth, some managers use intuition as a check on the results of more rational analysis. Most senior executives are familiar with formal decision analysis models and tools, and those who use such systematic methods for reaching decisions are occasionally leery of solutions suggested by these methods, which run counter to their sense of the correct course of action. Finally, managers can use intuition to bypass in-depth analysis and move rapidly to engender a plausible solution. So I read the 5 methods, none of which I remember or I understood. But if there's any question, I will go back and read it again. Used in this way, intuition is an almost instantaneous cognitive process in which a manager recognizes familiar patterns. So if you just focus on the first sentence and the last sentence of the third paragraph, it makes it clear to you. The third paragraph is basically giving you Eisenberg's opinion of intuition, and he says the managers use intuition in 5 ways, describes the 5 ways, and then finally the key takeaway is in this, the way Eisenberg sees it, intuition is an instantaneous process in which a manager recognizes familiar patterns. That's very, very important. So, because even when I was reading the points, I do remember reading somewhere that it is all about what you've done in the past and applying the lessons to the future or to the current problem. Something like that was there in the middle somewhere. So, okay, that's basically the third paragraph for us. The last paragraph now. One of the implications of the intuitive style of executive management is that thinking is inseparable from acting. Okay? Since managers often know what is right before they can analyze and explain it, they frequently act first and explain later. Analysis is inextricably tied to action in thinking acting cycles in which managers develop thoughts after their companies and organizations, not by analyzing a problematic situation and then acting. So all I've gathered so far is they act first and explain later because it's more intuitive. So, okay. Given the great uncertainty of many of the management issues that they face, senior managers often instigate a course of action simply to learn more about an issue. They then use the results of the action to develop a more complete understanding of the issue. One implication of thinking acting cycles is that action is often part of defining the problem, not just of implementing the solution. The important part over there was that managers, even when they haven't completely understood the problem, they initiate some action. And then they use the results of that action to understand the problem even better, and then maybe they can counter it even better. So then the last sentence makes sense that action is often part of defining the problem or understanding the problem and not just part of the solution. So if I have to summarize the entire passage, the first paragraph says that managers use intuition more than they use rational classical decision making model. Second paragraph says most management writers define intuition incorrectly. Third paragraph defines intuition in the words of Eisenberg. He gives you 5 ways in which managers use intuition, which is mainly connected to recognizing familiar patterns. And the last paragraph says one implication of this intuitive style of functioning is that managers tend to act first and think later. They also tend to initiate a particular action just to understand the problem more, after which they understand, they come up with a better solution. So in that way, action is part of understanding the problem and not just implementing the solution. So you see, that's the entire passage summarized for you. It's a neutral passage. I don't think the author had any agenda anywhere. So he gives you opinion of some people. Mostly neutral passage. Given the information in the second paragraph, what I could say is maybe he's a little against writers who think of intuition as something very vague or basic as described in the second paragraph. But overall, I would still say it's more of a neutral passage. So now we approach the questions, starting with the first one, which is 93. According to the passage, which means it's a detailed question, senior managers use intuition in all of the following ways except. So now we'll have to go back and read those 5 points because I'm sure the answers will be connected to those. And it's an except question. So 4 of these will be there in the passage. The one that is not there is your answer. So I'll go through the options and see if I can recall a few points and eliminate a few. A says to speed up the creation of a solution to a problem. I think it was there. To identify a problem was definitely there. Bring together disparate facts. Stipulate clear goals. Evaluate possible solutions. Well, if I had to guess, I would go between C and D, but I shouldn't have to guess. I will go back and check those 5 points quickly. So first, they intuitively sense when a problem exists. So identify a problem is done. B is out. Second, they rely on intuition to perform well-learned behavior pattern. This is not arbitrary, but based on years of practice. Okay, is it there anywhere? Speed up the creation of solution. I don't think so. Third function is to synthesize isolated bits of data into an integrated picture, which is bring together disparate facts. That applies here. So C is also gone. So we've eliminated B and C. Fourth, some managers use intuition as a check on the results of more rational analysis. So most executives are familiar with formal decision analysis models. No, I don't think that helps either. Finally, managers can use intuition to bypass in-depth analysis and move so quickly to a problem. So A is also there. So A, B and C are there. Now between D and E, evaluate possible solutions, stipulate clear goals. I don't think intuition is being used to stipulate clear goals by any means. D should definitely be the answer to the question, even though I couldn't honestly find E, but I'm sure if I go and look again, I'll find it. But D is definitely not there anywhere in the passage, I think. That should be the answer to the question. So you see, even though I am not 100% sure why E is wrong, I am 100% sure why D is wrong, or that D is definitely wrong. And that's good enough for me to select D as the answer. And that's the kind of thought process you will have to use on the GMAT. You don't look for 100% answers. I mean, try, but on difficult questions, it doesn't always work. Even in sentence correction or critical reasoning, 90% is more than enough. So in this case, A, B, C were out. D definitely looked like the answer to me. E, I wasn't sure, but D had to be the answer. So then I took a risk and I went with D. If I still had some time left, or if I was very unsure, then I would have gone back and checked. But since I was very clear that goals are not there anywhere in the passage stipulating goals, D definitely looked like a very good answer to me. That's the kind of thinking a manager actually would have to display, which is why I keep saying the GMAT is a very good test of managerial ability actually.